DiBartolomeo, and one of the things that the gentleman mentioned was the franchisee. Well, Bob works for the franchisor, meaning he is the corporate representative for a company called Red Mango out of, I guess out of Brooklyn, New York City.
Yeah, we have 2 offices, but New York and Dallas.
Okay, so as the franchise director, though, he spends a lot of time on the road, so he's going to tell you not so much about franchisee, but kind of from the other perspective from the franchisor. So thank you, Bob.
All right, good. Thank you for having me today. Couple things, real brief. I'll go over what we're going to talk about today. I'm just going to review, 3 types of different franchises and kind of define those. Some of the advantages and challenges of becoming a franchisor, why people want to franchise their business. And we're going to spend a considerable amount of time on the FDD. I don't know if you've gotten to that in your lesson plan yet, but the franchise disclosure document give you a peek under the tent on what that document contains and some facts that are universal. So I think that that'll be something that will be interesting and valuable to you. And then last but not least, we'll talk about registration states and filing states and kind of differentiating those from each other. And I'll have some questions and answers at the end. But if there's something that you'd like me to explain further, just raise your hand, and it's pretty informal, okay? A little bit about my background. As they talked to you about, I'm the National Franchise Sales Manager for Red Mango Frozen Yogurt and Smoothies. It's a frozen yogurt concept based out of Dallas, Texas, and Long Island, New York. I've been in franchising pretty much my whole career. After graduating from college, I worked with 7-Eleven for 12 years. After 7-Eleven, I moved down to Florida and worked with a convenience store chain that had a branded fast food attached to it. So I was exposed to brands like Blimpie, Subway, Taco Bell, Dairy Queen. It's a lot of the stuff you see on the highways when you're traveling. I worked with Quiznos for a bit with their underperforming stores. I handled half the country with Quiznos. After Quiznos went to Dunkin' Donuts, selling franchises on the East Coast. And while I was at Dunkin', a few of my buddies from 7-Eleven that I had met were getting involved with Red Mango, and they asked me to jump on board with them. And I've been there the past 6 years. That's kind of my background. I've done everything from selling franchises to developing the franchise system to working with the operations team, marketing, construction, real estate. So there's many different areas in the franchise industry. I myself really enjoy working with the franchising. It can be a very lucrative field. I've supported my family all these years with it. It's interesting, and like I said, you can go into many different things. If you were to get, had an interest in going on to law school, we all need attorneys. The FDD is a legal document, so that would apply. If you're interested in commercial real estate and development, that would apply. If you're interested in operations, actually running the businesses, that would apply. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go. So I think that this is a great start for you to learn more about it, whether you want to be involved as a franchisor, or I guess the pinch a penny guy was a franchisee and opted to invest in a brand. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go. So hopefully I'll be helpful in molding that decision for you. Types of franchising. Really, there's 3 basic types of franchises. There's a distributorship, and you'll see them, that's the car dealers. They call those a franchise, believe it or not. And what they do is they have the rights to sell for the parent company, and they represent the parent company. The second one is trademark or brand licensing. FSU is one of them. You'll see anytime you buy an FSU shirt, or a Nike, you'll see a little brand identifier there. That trademark is being protected there. It gives the company the right to distribute and use these trademarks out there. The Yankees, Miami Dolphins, those are all sports franchises. And then last but not least, the ones that you folks are probably most familiar with is in the retail and service industry, bless you. In the retail and service industry. That would include things like McDonald's, 7-Eleven, Dunkin' Donuts, some of the service franchises would be like a Tutor Doctor. So it doesn't necessarily have to be brick and mortar. But most popular are those brick and mortar businesses. So those are the three different types. So today we're going to really kind of focus on the retail business, the brick and mortar, the ones that you're most familiar with. Moving over to a franchisor. Franchisor is a pretty dynamic business model. Why is that? Because what usually happens is someone comes up with a concept. We'll just pick a restaurant. I have a pizza restaurant, and I make really great pizza. And people always tell me, hey, you make really good pie. We really love coming here. So in order to expand that business or expand that brand to other markets, people elect to go into franchising. So that's one of the primary reasons why and benefits of being a franchisor, to get your brand out there to the masses, and without necessarily having the expense of doing it. Because when you talk to individual franchisees, they're responsible for actually financing that venture. So let's say if I wanted to open up pizza place, I have one in Tallahassee, but I'd like to open up a few more in Tallahassee, but I'd also like to move to Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, and Miami. What I would do is I would advertise there, recruit franchisees, and then have someone that committed to either one store or multiple stores in each one of those cities, and have simultaneous development. So you're getting a large market penetration without the necessarily capital outlay. So that's a very good benefit for a franchisor. The other thing is that you develop income from franchises. And I'll explain, Bob has told me that you've reviewed royalties and you understand what a franchise fee is, what a royalty fee is, what an advertising fee is. The royalty fee is the revenue generator for the franchisor, okay? It's usually a percentage of sales, doesn't necessarily have to be. It could be done by the cost of goods and charging more for the cost of goods. It could be a set amount. Some franchisors say, you know what, it's $500 a month. So you give us $500 a month, it doesn't matter what your sales are. But most typical in this industry is based on sales. And the royalty fee can be anywhere from 4% to 10%, okay? So it's a revenue generator. Now the franchisor is going to collect revenue from these individual franchisees without actually running these locations on the ground level, let's say. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what their responsibilities are. So what they're doing is they're basically managing the big picture. So they're making decisions, global decisions. If I have that pizza restaurant, I'm not really looking at how many employees Miami has and who's working in Tampa, but I'm going to make decisions like we're going to introduce calzones, or we're going to introduce the stuffed crust product, or we're going to introduce chicken wings, and then distribute those ideas to the franchisees, and the franchisees will execute, thus increasing revenue, and then that's how the franchisor gets comped, because those revenues will go up, those sales will go up as a result, and then they realize higher royalty stream. Okay? Is everybody clear on that? And last but not least, I kind of mentioned this, but it's really important. They don't get involved with the day-to-day operations. We're just having a discussion about that. The franchisees are independent contractors for the most part. They do have to follow rules and regulations, but I, as a company employee, I can't go into a franchise store if I see an employee behind the counter, smoking, and let's say cursing or texting, whatever the case may be. It's a behavior that's not acceptable, obviously. I can't go to that employee and tell them to stop doing that, technically, okay? Depending on my relationship with the franchisee, most of the time, I would go to the franchisee and say, look, that is not acceptable. You need to correct that. And then because they work for the franchisee, they don't work for me. So there's that independence, that barrier there that's really, really important that's got to be adhered to, okay? But then again, the franchisee's got to follow the rules and regulations of the franchise, so he could be in violation. So the day-to-day operations are the franchisee's responsibility, and the overall big picture management is the responsibility of the franchisor. And we're going to get into that a little bit later when we talk about the FDD. All right, do we have any questions so far? Now, I gave, go ahead.
Would you say the franchisee is more like you're their boss, or is it more like a franchisor?
Good question. The franchisee should be viewed as a partner, a business partner, because you have a contractual arrangement with them, and they are not employees, which, by the way, is being debated right now on a bigger level. But right now it stands that the franchisees are representative of the brand, so they have very clear cut, and we'll talk about the FDD later on. It's very clear, laid out what their responsibilities are. And they could lose their franchise if they don't adhere to the requirements that are in their franchise agreement. Okay, so look at that relationship as more of a partnership than it is an employee-employer relationship. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yes?
Can you repeat the three types of
Sure. We have distributorships. We have trademark or brand licensing. And then we have the retail businesses. Okay? And you know the differences between all.
Would like Budweiser be a distributorship type?
Budweiser would be a distributorship. Exactly. Okay? The licenses are more like the intangible, the stuff that you can't touch really, like FSU, the Seminoles, the Yankees. Whenever you buy that type of product, you'll see like the little hologram logo on it, because they're getting a piece of that. Every time you buy a ticket for FSU, or you buy a T-shirt, or you buy a hat, FSU gets their piece of that pie.
Is there good enforcement on that? Because I know a lot of people have stuff made up. And
yeah, I mean, it was a big thing with just the national championship that they were all over those folks. They have people that are out there doing that. I mean, I visit New York fairly often. I mean, I grew up there, and you will see where they go after these licenses. Now, other licenses that get abused. I mean, a lot of designer folks. I mean, everybody's heard about Chinatown, the handbags, and all that good stuff with the Rolex watches. They enforce that, yeah. I mean, but they can only do so much. I mean, who's going to stop a college kid from sitting in his dorm, printing up 1,000 championship T-shirts and then selling them for $10 a piece? I mean, they may get caught, they may not. But yes, it is enforced. Yes, question in the back.
Is every trademark like a franchise, like type franchising?
No, not every franchise. No,
I wouldn't think so.
It is not.
So what is like the separating factor? I understand FSU is like you mentioned a lot of sports. That's very clear. But like if I wanted to use like Google's name on something, Google, like that's not a brand. I mean,
that would not be a franchise. They're not deriving income from the sale of anything that you would use it for. You wouldn't pay Google for that. They would have to give their permission. They might want like a one-time fee, but like I'm talking more about like sports teams is really the best example of that.
So it's the generation of like constant revenue.
Correct. Okay.
One more in the back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that guy on the side of the street who's selling T-shirts, they could go after him technically?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. They will shut him down, and depending on how strict they want to get with that, they could fine him. That you could be arrested. I mean, New York City, you'll see them on the streets where They'll, you know, they sell DVDs and pirated, all different types, and we're getting off the track a little bit. It isn't necessarily a trademark, but yeah, those things are protected, and they are enforced, was the question. So if you're thinking about doing that, like, you know, like making T-shirts up with FSU, you need to go buy the licensing for that, and then they would set you up on some type of system. I mean, that's if they would have to approve everything. It's a process. I mean, they just don't hand that stuff out. But if you were able to do that, you'd have to go the legal route to do it. Okay. Some of the challenges of becoming, you know, I gave you some of the benefits. Some of the challenges of becoming a franchisor is it's pretty costly to build a system. Like, I don't know if you've covered this yet, but part of the franchisor's responsibilities are to develop the system and to give ongoing support. That's usually the reason why they collect royalties. So to give that support, you need, you know, to hire marketing people, operations people. You need to have programs that are set up. You need to have a legal team. There's legal expenses. There's a lot of expenses when you only have 1 or 2 locations. The good news is as you grow, you won't have to continually, other than hiring a few bodies perhaps, you won't have to recreate the wheel. So it's very costly in the beginning. That's one of the downsides to being a franchisor, because it's a lot of upfront expense, and it doesn't really start paying off until, like, for instance, with Red Mango's brand, we didn't really start getting profitable until we had about 60 locations. And then the revenues that those 60 locations were generating started being able to pay for, let's say, my salary, my travel expenses, and so forth. Okay? So that's one thing. It's pretty costly. It's a big responsibility. I mean, you know, people are investing in you and your brand. So, you know, that technically is, you know, you don't want to see failure. I mean, somebody comes to you with their life savings to build this pizza place, and, you know, they put them in business, and then they fail, and they lose everything. That's a big responsibility to the franchisor. And that all has to be documented. We're going to get to that when we talk about the FDD. Along coupled with that is validation. Very important to my business as a franchise development person that when I talk to franchisees, they want to talk to other franchisees that are involved in the business. And they hear all the good things from me because I'm selling the brand. They want to know all the down and dirty stuff. You know, how does Red Mango treat you? You know, are you successful? Would you do this again? All those down and dirty questions are questions that the franchisee is going to ask, the prospective franchisee will ask current franchisees and franchisees that may have been terminated from the system. They want to know. So that due diligence, which we obviously ask the franchisees to do, because we don't want to keep things from them. We want to be above board. We don't want to deceive anybody. So we recommend talking to franchisees. That validation is important. Well, the only way that franchisees stay happy is if the franchisor helps them be happy. And that is the responsibility of the franchisor. There's exposure to litigation. You know, if somebody is down in Tampa and they're selling my pizza and somebody slips and falls in the pizzeria because somebody dropped a piece of pizza on the floor, nobody cleaned it, and they slipped and fell. Now, there is an independent contractor status. We're not responsible for the day-to-day operations. However, with all that said, in this society today, you know, anybody can be sued. You all know that. So where do they go? They're going to go after the folks with the deepest pockets. So not only will the franchisee be sued, but the parent company could be sued. And you still have to defend yourself. They may not win, but there's still expense to that. So the key point is there's exposure to litigation when you're a franchisor. And last but not least, and we're going to talk more about this, you're under the jurisdiction of the Federal Trade Commission. You need to follow rules and regulations. And that's something that is a big responsibility because, like, you know, take myself. I work for the company. Company's got to trust me that I understand and I'm only saying the things I'm supposed to say. And again, you'll understand more of this when we get to the FDD. But that's really, really important because the company can be held liable, I can be held liable personally. It's a big responsibility. So the company, not so much with me because I'm a little bit more experienced than most, but they hold seminars and it's continuing education for their franchise development people because they want them to be abreast of what's going on and the new laws, changes, and so forth. Okay. Any questions up until, so I went over kind of the advantages and disadvantages of becoming a franchisor, why people franchise their business. We're good? Okay, good. Let's jump into the FDD. The FDD is a franchise disclosure document. This is one right here for Red Mango, and it's a pretty lengthy document. And I'm going to go over what goes into these, and I'm going to tell you why. Back before 2008, I think the date was July 1st of 2008, this used to be called the UFOC, which stood for Uniform Franchise Offering Circular. Okay, and then the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, decided we're going to change the name to the FDD by 2008. In this document, now, whether you apply for a Red Mango, you have Subway, Taco Bell, any franchise, there's certain items that need to be contained in here per the FTC. There's actually 23 items, and they all are in order. So in other words, item 19 is item 19 with Red Mango, it's item 19 with 7-Eleven, and that's the earnings claim. And we're going to spend a lot of time on item 19 because A, it's important, but B, it's probably the most talked about one where franchisees will ask you about. So we're going to spend a lot of time on 19. One of the basic, what they actually call the franchise rule, is the franchise rule of the Federal Trade Commission. And what that dictates is a few different things. Who prepares the FDD? Who hands out the FDD? When you're to receive the FDD? How it needs to be updated? How long a franchisee has to review it? All of these things are the FTC rule governed by the Federal Trade Commission. So the franchise rule in basics is on your first personal meeting, and in my case, I talk to a lot of people on the phone, so I do it when in my first conversation with them. I need to hand them this document. In return, there's the last page, it's item 23, is the receipt. And that is a copy of the receipt. You can't see it, but it's a one-page document that just says, I've given you this document on this day. And why is that important? Because there's different triggers in different states of cooling off periods. You have a 14-day cooling off period that I can't accept any money, sign any papers, 14 days. We call it the Oreo because you don't count the day you give it to them, and you don't count the very last day. It's the middle. It's 14 days. Okay? I can't sign a document. So Bob came to me today and said, I want to buy a Red Mango today. I got the cash. I want to do it. We couldn't do that. I would have to hand him this document. He would have to sign that receipt with today's date. And then starting tomorrow, 14 days starts tomorrow. So we don't count the day I gave it to him. And then 14 days out, and then on the 15th day, he can sign and give me his check. Okay? Really, really important. That's basic. All franchises apply. Okay?
Bob?
Yes.
Bob, you have a question?
Oh,
Who came up with the 14? Why 14 days?
the government. That's the FTC.
But what's the logic behind 14 days?
Because that gives people enough time to read the document, to digest it, to give it to their advisors. It gives them plenty of time. So in other words, it's not like buying a car. You walk into the dealership, the guy says, hey, here you go. I'll give you the car for this amount of money. You sign it, and then you're driving home saying, how am I going to pay for this? You know, so they avoid that.
All right. Okay. I think there should be like a test, because you can give me a book and give me a certain amount of time, but The only way you know if I have the knowledge of that book is if
We'll
you
get
just
to
doing
that.
it.
We'll get to that. That's part of my job.
Gotcha.
And I will hit on that. It wasn't on the agenda, but that's a good question, and we can talk about that. Let me just jot that down here. Okay, so that's the rule, guys. And technically, and there's some exceptions, like trade shows. Like if we have a trade show booth, I don't have to give every person I talk to one of these, okay? Because trade show is kind of the exception. But for the most part, even like on an airplane, if I sit in my seat and the guy goes to me, well, what do you do for a living? I say, well, I sell franchises. What franchise do you sell? Red Band. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, tell me, what's the franchise fee on that? Technically, I need to give him one of these documents. Again, getting back to your enforcement question, it's hard to enforce that, obviously, for obvious reasons. But for the most part, this document gets in the hands of everybody I start talking to for a franchise. So when they call me on the phone, they say, look, I'm interested in a Red Mango franchise. I ask them some questions, some general questions. I send them out a packet. This is the first thing I give them. And that receipt, before I can give them an agreement, that receipt needs to be on record, that I gave them this and the 14 days has lapsed. Yes?
Are most FDDs electronic now? Just send it to them? Or do you
Some
actually
are,
send
and
them physical?
some are, and some aren't. And the rule says that I need to furnish it in a hard copy if requested. So some people aren't computer literate, and they can't pull it up. I mean, like I said, look at the size of this thing. I mean, you'll burn an inkjet printer just printing this thing. So some people do request that I send it to them in hard copy, which we have something set up. I check a box, and then it gets sent out hard copy. But we try to avoid that for obvious reasons, printing.
And then if you sent them a hard copy, how would they sign the agreement? They
Sign it and fax it, scan it, email it, or fax it. Okay? All right. So let's talk about the contents of this thing. Like, why is it so important? Like I told you, it's got 23 items. These are some of the items, and some of them we'll gloss over, some I'll spend a little bit more time on. First and foremost, in item 1, it lists the franchisor, their address, the president, their experience, yada, yada, yada. So it gives a kind of a history of who runs the franchise. 2, any key people list their experience. Okay, any key people in the company. So the marketing, CMO would be listed there, the legal counsel would be listed there, and then it has a list of their experience, where they've worked before. Item 3, litigation history. If there's any litigation that's current or previous, would be listed there with the outcome. In our current one, we have 1 or 2 cases where people decided they weren't going to pay royalties. We have to list it there. Any kind of litigation. So when you're looking into a franchise, it's pretty important to see, hey, have these guys been sued before? Bankruptcy. Any bankruptcies, personal or professional, by any of the officers of the company have to be listed there. Yes.
Is that under item?
Wait. Go ahead.
Is that under item 4?
That's item 4, bankruptcy. Yes. I'm sorry. And you had a question in the back?
I was saying.
Okay. 5, the initial franchise fee. You guys talked about that. The franchise fee's got to be listed there. Okay? 6, other fees and expenses. So that would include if there's training, or you guys talked about, like when you talked about royalties, you probably talked about an advertising or a brand development fee. That would be listed there, how much it is, and then what it goes for. Okay?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Like the franchise fee and the royalty, or you have to publish that. It's got to be standard for everybody. But I know back when I did Hardee's, I got a special rate that they ran, like an incentive. So do you have to republish that somehow?
I'll tell you what we do. That's absolutely correct. Again, go back to the uniform offering circular. Everybody gets it. It's the same. Okay? But that's true. We do make certain adjustments in this agreement. And that might be one of them, an incentive. The only thing we have to do is disclose it. So in other words, under, that would probably go under, it'd probably be an addendum to the agreement where it'd be separate. So, and I'm going to tell you why it's better to do that. You don't want to change everybody's agreement. You don't want to give Bob D, 8 years on his agreement with a 10% royalty. You don't want to give Bob here, 3 years and, a 3% royalty. Because to manage that, if you got hundreds of people, you don't know what they have. You want to put an addendum, last page of their agreement, to their special deal. As long as you disclose it in the document, and that's why we don't really like changing things. Like people bring it to their attorney and they have them mark it up and they ask for all these ridiculous things. Change this word to the and if and of and, scratch this. We don't do that because we would have to document in the FDD that we've made those changes. So that's how we get, not around it, but that's how we cover ourselves to make special arrangements. Because there are special deals. Like we have what we call a pioneer deal in our program, where if it's a state that's allocated where we want really quick development, we have a very tight window for finding the location, building the location, and opening the location, and there's like dates tied to that, and if they adhere to that, they get a reduced franchise fee and a reduced royalty fee for a certain amount of years. So we have a pioneer addendum. So in the very beginning of the document, it'll be checked, pioneer addendum. So then oh, this particular franchisee's got a pioneer deal. You go back to the back, and then you read the details of his particular deal or her particular deal. Okay? Okay. So we talked about item 6 would be other fees and expenses. Item 7 is the estimated franchisee's initial investment. Okay, what that means is that we take the highest and the lowest. And these are actual expenses, everything all in. Franchise fee, real estate development, equipment, signage, training, the whole McGillet, and it's all broken down by category. That gives you a number. We give them the absolute lowest one and the absolute highest one. Okay? Really important, because when you're thinking about, well, what is it going to cost me to get into this? You need to know, well, out of 250 locations, the highest one we did was $525,000, which is a lot of money. But, again, most of them fall around 400, but you know what the highest one is.
So what's the net worth you have to start a franchise in Red Mango?
I'll get into those particulars, but just real quick, it's $35,000 franchise fee. It's a 6% royalty fee. It's a 3% brand development fee, and the net worth is $350, and you need $200 cash, liquid. Okay. What? Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, you're right. I think this falls under the exception, though. Okay, restrictions on item 8. Restrictions on sources of products and services. Real important. That's where you're going to see, can I buy, because a lot of people say, well, can I buy my products from somebody else? Like, somebody else is selling a straw for Red Mango. Or the spoon. Spoon's a good example here. Because our spoon is part of our shtick. It's a red spoon. We walk into stores, it's cheaper to buy a white spoon. You can't use a white spoon. We need a red spoon. Okay? That will state in here that all Red Mango products have to come from Ace Distributing. And that's where you have to buy them. Okay? Item 9, obligations of the franchisee. Real important one. That'll tell you there, what the franchisee is responsible for. Responsible for keeping the store open, these set hours. We're responsible for staffing the store, cleaning the store. All of those obligations that a franchisee is responsible for needs to be disclosed there. Financing arrangements, item 10. That tells them where they can get financing. Do we have in-house financing, which we don't. Many companies don't, but you will find companies out there that do have financing. The obligations, item 11, obligations of the franchisor. That tells you everything the franchisor is responsible for. We will come in once a month, once every 6 weeks. We will do a quality inspection of your store. We will assign you a rep In our case, they call them FSMs. They're called franchise support managers. Back in the day, at 7-Eleven, we used to call them field reps. That was an individual that used to get assigned a territory. You'd have anywhere from 7-Eleven, we used to have 10 stores. With Red Mangoes, some of the folks have 25. They visit the store, and their primary responsibility is to offer support to that franchisee in ways of they do a business review, they'll look at financials, they'll say, and there's certain percentages. You're running a business, and you'll get accustomed to wherever you're working in. You'll know what gross profit is, you'll know what the payroll is, you'll know what rent is, that's fixed. But some of the variable expenses, like payroll, cost of goods, you'll look at that and say, you know what, Mr. Franchisee, your payroll's out of whack. You should be at 21% of the sales. You're at 30. Well, my wife's on the payroll, and she doesn't come in, and you just pay her. Okay, but, understand when you sell your business and you're showing this much profit, when we go to appraise your business, this is what it's going to work. But as long as we understand each other, that's what the franchise support manager does. Yes?
So you're saying one person can own about 25 Red Mangoes?
No, I said one person on the corporate side can be responsible for the franchisor. They're responsible for providing support and marketing to the franchise stores. They could have up to 25. Really the number for, optimum management is probably anywhere from around 12 to 18, somewhere in there. Like, once you start getting into the 25, think about it. You got to visit a store, if you visit one store every day, how many working days are there in a month? There's, 22 or 24 or whatever it is. Because you're not going to work weekends, assuming. Are you going to be able to hit all those stores every month? And you should hit them once a month, once every 6 weeks tops, depending on the concept. Some need less management than others. Like my 7-Eleven guys, I had them go into their stores. They only had 10 stores, and they were it was like Tallahassee was like a market. So somebody would have 10 stores in Tallahassee. They could go to every one of those stores Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So, it just depends.
Limit how many stores one person can own as a franchisee?
It depends. It depends. Yeah, it just depends. It just depends. Like I have a franchisee that's got 10 locations, and she's a young lady. Dad kind of financed her. Educated, came from Bed Bath & Beyond. She was a district manager, and she manages 10 stores for us. Let's figure 8 employees per store. 80 employees. She's got 10 managers. She's got a whole support staff. She's got a marketing department. She's got an operations department. It's a lot different than owning one store and actually serving the yogurt. Okay, so we talked about obligations of the franchisor. Number 12, item 12, territory. Territory has to be outlined in your franchising. How much protection do I have? Do I have no protection? Some don't offer any protection. Some offer a half a mile. I could tell you ours. We're in suburban neighborhoods where 2 to 3 miles, and that's a ring around the store. And then so we won't put another person 2 or 3 miles, but that person's got to get protection. So if he gets 2 or 3 miles, now you're talking about 4 to 6 miles away. We won't put another store. Like Subway, for instance, has very small protection. You can get Subways. I don't know how many Subways are in town here, but I would venture to say there's about 12 or 15 or maybe more. Okay, there's more Subways. So they may be at a half a mile or a quarter of a mile.
They don't have protection. That's one of the biggest
That's
problems.
one of the biggest problems. And again, they've probably been taking the task on.
Well, they tell them up front. That's what the thing is. As long as they disclose it,
That's
then
right.
you really have no recourse.
That's right. So that's very, very important. And I will tell you, like on some of our real estate, like one that comes to mind, it was in New York, New Rochelle, and that area. We had a store there, and I set the limit. I told her that she's got a 1 mile protection. The other guy also had a mile, but they did it at 1.95. She was an attorney, and it probably cost us about $500,000 to fix it. So, I mean, again, getting back to it, it could be costly in the litigation part, but I mean, we were wrong. I mean, somebody measured correctly, and we had to settle that franchisee, and we settled, and everybody's happy, but it still cost us a lot of money to do it, and on something that small, but it is what it is. It's a written document. So, and we felt good about settling that, and that was the way to do it. Item 13, trademarks. These are the trademarks. It tells you, like, if technically to do that, I probably should have got that okayed by our marketing part. But I'm pretty confident because I used their slick for the yogurts, and that is their logo. I didn't change their logo. They would probably approve it. So I'm not worried about that. But a franchisee, technically, if they want to do advertising, let's say they want to do it and forgive me because I didn't go to school here, but whatever the Flambeau, is it Flambeau, FSU? No. What's the newspaper?
FSU or?
Oh, the FSU View? Okay. If I wanted to advertise there, I would have to get that, okayed by our marketing department if I was a franchisee and I wanted to advertise in publication. Okay? So trademarks, everything listed there, all the regulations, the rules to follow the trademarks would be listed on item 13. 14, patents, copyrights, and proprietary information pretty much lists all the protections that, if that it's all proprietary, you can't publish this stuff. Operations manuals, a lot of times that they're given, you earn, those types of things. 15, obligation of the franchisee to participate in the actual operation of the franchise business. So that will outline exactly what the franchisee is required to do. Up and beyond their obligations, this is the actual the participation. So that there would say you can operate absentee, or you can have a key person. That key person has to be someone who's been certified and trained. That's where you'll find that information in the agreement. 16, restrictions on goods and services offered by the franchisee. That's where a franchisee often asks me, well, I want to sell coffee, my Red Mango. Well, no, because that's not an approved program with us. Now, if we want to sell coffee in that particular store, we have the right to grant that franchisee that permission. That's where that process to get it approved will be listed, right under restrictions on goods and services. But most of the headliner there is that you're only going to sell goods and provide goods and services for what's recommended under the Red Mango system, current Red Mango system. Item 17, renewal, termination, repurchase, modification, transfer agreement, dispute resolution. That's listed, like what you would be terminated for, what's a curable breach, what's a non-curable breach. Everything's outlined there. So very important piece. I mean, you're making a big investment in a franchise. You want to know, well, if I do this, am I in jeopardy in my business? So that's a really, really important. Want to know about renewal. Hey, what happens after 10 years? My agreement's 10 years. You have to pay, in this particular situation, you pay 1/2 franchise fee for renewal. Some don't give you a franchise fee. Some just renew you. I mean, that's a really, really important item, 17. And then, of course, the transfer. If you want to sell your store, how do I sell it? Do I get permission to sell it? Who can I sell it to? Does this person have to be approved? What are the qualifications? Is there a transfer fee? All those are answered in that item. 18 is public figures. That would list, any kind of mascots or, if trying to think of one, Ronald McDonald. That's where Ronald McDonald stuff would be placed, public figures. Item 19, really, really, really big. Item 19 is the financial performance representations. Okay, that is the earnings claim. You'll hear it referred to as the earnings. Now, franchisors do not have to list an earnings claim. We do not. Okay, but there's a couple of things here that need to be included or could be included in the earnings. Sample size. They have to tell you how big the sampling is. Is it 1 store, 10 stores, 30 stores? And this is included in any kind of advertising as well as verbal. So everything applies here. Average incomes. You know, if you're going to use averages, you have to, again, state how you got to those numbers. You know, there were, you know, an average store that was open a year or more, 30 stores from, and it gets into geographic, you know, spots too, like the Northeast, the Southwest. Is it for national? We happen to use a national average. I mean, we keep as clean as you possibly can. Yes.
So, like, for example, in New York, wouldn't that provide you with more, like, skewed averages? Because in New York, everything costs more and people are
Yes.
willing to spend more.
Yes.
So if you listed that on your FAD, how would you clarify that to someone who...
You would have to say, if now, would you just be listing New York to show, like, high numbers? Because then you would say these are only stores in New York, open more or less than a year, you know, so any open location. You have to just disclose everything you're doing. Like, you couldn't say our national average is and then just use the New York numbers. Okay, you would have to disclose. You would have to disclose every single thing that you were applying. Gross sales. That's the thing that we disclose on item 19. Okay? We talk about gross sales, nationwide average, stores open a year or more. But that's another way of disclosing that earnings.
Now, did you say that it's not required that you give this?
You don't have to require it. These are examples of items that can be disclosed, what I'm going through right now.
Okay, so would you say it would be a red flag if somebody wouldn't disclose, like, your average store sales or whatever? Or?
Yeah. I mean, we are bare bones. I mean, we are, and not that it's a red flag, but I get questioned about it all the time because they say, well, how much can I make? I mean, when somebody's buying a business, how much can I make? Well, what's my net profit? Well, that isn't in my disclosure doc. Well, what's in your disclosure doc? Well, I have the national average of stores open a year or more, and this is our national average, period. That's all I can discuss about it. They say, well, how do I figure this out? Well, I say, well, you know what your sales are, national average-wise. You know your cost of goods, because that's another number that we disclosed, and the cost of goods is 30 to 35%. Then all of those other expenses that go into your net profit, I have no idea what they are. I don't know whether your rent's going to be $6,000, $5,000, $12,000 a month. I don't know whether your payroll is going to be 18%, 22%. Are you going to run an absentee? Are you going to have family members in there? I mean, there's so many variables. So you have to take it through and do your due diligence on figuring out, hey, can I make money at this? It's not a red flag because I wouldn't recommend putting those numbers in. Because remember, these numbers are getting reviewed by the FTC, and you're registering this document. Well, let me say this. When it comes down to litigation, if there is something that was either said, represented, talked about, and it's not in this document, or this document is different than what's in this document, you can be sued for not only damages, but all the money you spent on the franchise. So get into a Red Mango, give or take, it's about $350, $400 grand, full dollar. I would have to return all that money, and then if there was any losses incurred, you would be responsible for that, and then there would be damages on top of that. So that is one of the reasons why we're real careful about item 19. Real important piece. Like, you know what? It's funny because, like, you'll see in publications, in advertisements for Jimmy John's, Jimmy John's will tell you how much their sales are and how much they make. They'll say it in there. Now, if that's true, hey, God bless them. I mean, that's true, and that's what they're, but that's very risky to do that. Because if that's proven that that's not true, they could be in a world of hurt. Now, I'm sure, because I see it in a lot of different publications, that those numbers have been checked and rechecked and updated and all that stuff. I'm sure of it, because it's all over. I mean, they take out, full-page ads in franchise, periodicals. But that's one where they buck the norm. They show you exactly what their franchise made and net profit. And like I said, it's very risky to do that. Yes.
Do you happen to recall that number? How much
I don't. But if you pull up Jimmy John's website, or if you pull up Entrepreneurial Magazine, is where they advertise. They advertise in Franchise Times. Any of those periodicals, you'll see it. Okay. A couple other things that could be included in item 19 is franchisees' backgrounds. They'll give like educational, ethnic backgrounds. And that's pretty much it as far as that item 19. Very important piece, though, because, again, my most popular question is, how much can I make? And, again, if it's not disclosed in item 19, I can't talk about it. Can't even tell them about it. And we're going to get into that in a second, because we have, like, a little check and balance to protect ourselves from. Getting to the close here. Item 21. Oh, excuse me. Missed 20. That was item 19. Item 20 is the list of franchise outlets. That's all the stores that are open, closed. They tell you when they open to close. They list the names, addresses, phone numbers of current and previous franchisees. 21 is the company's financial statements that have been audited financial statements for the most current year. 22 is a copy of the actual franchise agreement that you will sign. And last but not least, item 23 is the acknowledgement of receipt of FD. Getting to one other thing that I really want to talk about, because I think it's a great idea. I've done it in other concepts, Red Mango, and it's really come in handy for us. Part of our franchise agreement, and I'm trying to illustrate it, part of our franchise agreement, we have what we call a questionnaire that we give our franchisees. And the questionnaire, if I can pull it up, it's a series of questions. They're yes or no questions. And they ask the franchisee, as he's signing his franchise agreement, to they ask them if, different things during the process. Should have tabbed it. It's one of our attachments in our franchise agreement. It's called the franchise questionnaire. And basically, these are the questions that it asks yes or no. This is how the company manages what I'm saying, what other people in the company are saying, and it's documented. Because if this ever comes up where they said, well, Bob told me this. Bob told me I could make $1 million. I've lost $50,000, so I want my money back. This kind of protects us from that. Franchise questionnaire. Have you received and personally reviewed the franchise agreement and each exhibit and schedule attached to it? Yes, because I got the FD. Have you received the franchise disclosure document? Yes. Have you signed a receipt for the franchise disclosure document? Yes. Do you understand all the information contained in the franchise disclosure document? Yes. Have you reviewed the franchise disclosure document and franchise agreement with a lawyer, accountant, or another professional advisor? Yes. Have you discussed the benefits and risks of operating a Red Mango with your professional advisor? Yes. Did you discuss the benefits and risks of operating a Red Mango store with an existing Red Mango store franchisee? Yes. Do you understand the risks of operating a Red Mango franchise? Yes. Do you understand the success or failure of your franchise will depend in large upon your skills, abilities, efforts, and those persons you employ, as well as many other factors beyond your control, such as weather, competition, interest rates, economy, inflation, labor, supply costs, lease terms, and the market. Yes. You understand all disputes or claims arising out of relating to your franchise agreement must be brought in a judicial district which our principal place of business is located. Yes. You understand the franchise agreement provides only you can collect compensatory damages on any claim relating to the franchise. Yes. You understand managing that your managing owner and key person must successfully complete the training program. Yes. You understand Red Mango does not have to sell you a franchise or consent to the purchase of your existing franchise. Yes. There's a bunch of anti-terrorist stuff that they ask questions. I won't go through all of those. There's a whole series of questions. It reverts back, back in the day, they used to pick on the mafia. They didn't want money being laundered through a franchise. Now it's anti-terrorism. So they ask a lot of questions, that you're not associated with any terrorist groups, all of those types of questions. One that I really want to get to is it true that no employee or other person speaking on our behalf made any statement or promises regarding the costs involved in operating a Red Mango store that is not contained in the FDD, or that is contrary to or different from the information contained in the FDD? Yes. Is it true no employee or other person speaking on behalf made any statement or promises regarding the actual, average, or projected profits, the earnings, the likelihood of success, the amount of money you will earn, or the total amount of revenue a Red Mango store franchise will generate that is not contained in the FDD? Yes.
So someone signs that,
Yes.
and so they can't sue you. They say, well, they said that no one said any other numbers, but then they try to sue you. But since they signed that, they can't
Well,
do
a
that?
couple things. First of all, we already talked about it. Anybody can sue anybody for anything, so we still got to defend. Second thing is, what that person's going to say is, yeah, Your Honor, I did sign that thing, but I didn't know what I was signing. I was so happy, and Bob was such a
But
good
it said previously you went over with a legal associate or some type of
Yes.
over, so then you use that case to defend it.
And we do, and like I said, like we talked about earlier, it could go any way. He could say, I was so excited, I was happy,
Right.
Bob's such a great salesman, and I didn't even read those questions. I checked them, but I didn't read them, and then it gets into the legality, and, again, anything could happen. But the idea is, yes, that's why we put this in here. So we can say, Your Honor, look, they signed this thing, they did talk to, because I'm going to get on the stand and say, look, I told them everything that's in the FDD. I've had to do that on occasion. We're actually going through something right now with the franchisee that, it hasn't settled yet. It's probably going to settle. But, I went through the deposition. Like, did you ever talk about profits? No. Did you ever talk about this? No. Did you ever talk about this? No. I mean, I've been in the business 25 years. How many times have you been in a court of law being questioned about this? This is the first time after 25 years.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't mess up. I understand it. I get it. I advise attorneys on this stuff. So I know what to say and what not to say. So if you're credible enough,
Right.
you can make your case. But like we discussed, there is no telling of
What the jury will do.
what a jury or a judge will do. You got to remember, it's big business against the little guy that lost his daughter's college education going into business. So,
Right.
it can go either way.
I would say my dealings with Hardee's, they were very, very careful about what they would say and what they wouldn't say. And like when she was helping me pick out locations, she was very careful not to say, you need to be right here.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because,
Oh, yeah.
because they had been sued in the past, because basically somebody interpreted it saying, if you put your store right here, you're going to be successful and you're going to make money. And once again, it all goes back, a lot of it's how you operate, but they have to be careful what they say.
See, I know what I say, but like the guys I manage, I don't know what they say. Because
Right.
let's face facts, you all get compensated on commission.
Right.
And the
So
more
they'll
stores
say-
you sell, the more you make. I mean, so there is an incentive there. Now, again, I look at it a little differently. I've been in this business a long time. It's very close-knit. And like I told you earlier, any violations, not only can the company go down, but you can be held personally liable for that stuff. Like my boss calls me all the time, and because he knows that I'm very knowledgeable about this. He's more of an operator. He's the president of the company. And he calls me all the time. And he's like, hey, I said this. Like, well, what's going to happen? And I was like, do you look good in stripes? What can I tell you? I mean, you probably shouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have said that, but now it's done. I said, I wouldn't worry about it.
Is that all because of like now anyone can sue anybody, like you said? Is that why? Or has it always been like that? Watch what you say.
Meaning what? I'm not.
Like you're saying how everyone has to watch what they say, or like in soup. Is that always like?
Oh no, it's always like.
It's always
yeah.
Been
I mean that has never changed. I mean, and these laws are put in place by the government and the state entities to protect the franchisees. Because like franchising, like the first thing in the first page of this document, says here, this document summarizes certain provisions of your franchise agreement. You must receive this disclosure. Okay. However, no government agency has verified the information in this document. I mean, and it'll tell you about the risks that are involved. It's on the first page of the document. So, I mean, I think if you're running a legitimate business, which we are, and you're disclosing everything that's honest, and I encourage all my people, like, franchisees ask me all the time. They say, "What if I don't sign this?" Or like, "What if I check no?" I said, "That's okay. I mean, if you didn't talk to an advisor, I don't want you checking yes. Just check no, and then on the back of the form, write, I didn't get a chance to talk to my attorney. And then after you're done with that, I'll make a decision whether, we're going to move forward or not. And depending on, the circumstance, I may phone the attorney right then and there, and say, look, let's get the attorney on the phone. They've seen the document. Yes, he's seen the document, but I didn't get a chance to talk. Okay, well, let's get to him and see if there's any questions. I'm very careful on like how I proceed and when I proceed, because it's really not going to make or break me. If the deal falls off because the due diligence wasn't done. I have a responsibility too myself. I want to be able to sleep at night. I don't want to lose money and so this is for me also. I want to know that I've done a good job. Getting back to, I think somebody asked earlier, what my role is. And my role is to give you all the information to make it. I'm really not here to sell you off in or out of anything.
Right.
If somebody comes to me, and it's happened in the past, I mean, people have come to me that didn't have the experience, didn't kind of get it. You kind of know after 25 years, and you kind of know who gets it, who doesn't get it. And, really harp on those questions. Like, did you talk to franchisees? Yeah, I talked. What questions? I want to know what those conversations are like. And, see that they asked all those right questions, and they actually did it. We have a process in our setup where they do a business plan. The business plan, the Dunkin', it was like this book. I mean, I've done business plans for Dunkin' Donuts, and I charged $3,000. I mean, that's how intense it was. Our business plan on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most difficult, probably a 2. But what it does do is it asks questions that are relevant to this document that you've read. And that gives me the idea that, hey, I have a good understanding, I feel comfortable, you understand. Because it is really important.
Get a couple more questions, and then we got to
Wrap it up.
I just have a general question. Like, as far as coming up with like a viable concept, like becoming a franchisor, would you say the majority of franchises are like co-founded to help like mitigate the financial burden, or I guess it just depends?
Yeah, I mean, there's not too many that I can think of that partner. I mean, I think that's what you're asking me.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not too many that partner. I mean, what the important thing is if you're going to franchise your concept, you need to really have a track record. I'm working with a gentleman right now who's trying to get pizza off the ground in Orlando. He's got a great pizza place. He's from New York. He's just very, very good concept. But I said, Johnny, it's good for you because you're here. You got to now mold this thing that if I came in, you could show me how to make the same product, exactly the same, the consistency, the same running of the business, like a top. I have to be able to do it. That's where he's struggling because he's real good at what he does, but it's because he's
not
there.
transferable.
And it's not transferable, exactly. So you really have to get that concept, nailed down, buttoned up, have step-by-step procedures. Like with Red Mango, when we come out with a new flavor, you get a folder, and it tells you how to mix the flavor, where the point of sale's got to go, and it's on the window, like they give you a schematic. It's not like hanging a sign on the window. It's like it's got to go in the door handle right above the right-hand side, and everything's done to the most minute detail. And that's what you need to do when you're franchising. Because they're executing, you're doing the big picture. Like talking. Any other questions?
One thing that you had mentioned in a previous class, like South Beach was, I don't know if you ever got a store down there, but just like what rent would be in some of those high traffic areas?
Yeah, you get into areas like South Beach is one, Midtown Manhattan is another. We'd love to be in Midtown Manhattan. It's a great spot for us to be. Obviously, traffic is there. The city that never sleeps. But the rent becomes so prohibitive. To get a spot that, just put in perspective, like a 1,600 square foot spot, and I live up on the northeast side of town. The guy approached me and said, "I give you that rent, $3,000." That same space, if you moved it to Midtown, would be like $30,000. Okay, so that's a lot of yogurts. I think what he was referring to is I had a friend of mine that we knew the operator. He worked for the franchisee of the McDonald's in Times Square. If you've ever been there. It's the one right across from where they sell the Broadway tickets. It's the two-story one. It's 24 hours. They start their shifts. It's 24 hours, but they start their shift at 6. They don't start making money. Their break even is 2 in the afternoon. So that's when they start making money. So from 6 to 2, so that's all of breakfast and pretty much all of lunch, just to cover the rent and their expenses. Then they start making money from 2 to 6 the next month. That's where they make their money. So it's ridiculous. The rent there is, and this is going back a few years, was $140,000 a month, $140,000 a month. So but again, it's Midtown Manhattan. If you've ever been there, it's where that's where everybody's going. I don't eat McDonald's, but when I went to the city to vacation, we were staying in Midtown, and I got up and a cup of coffee in those hotels is like $10, $12. So I went to McDonald's and bought breakfast. All right. Any other questions?
Real quick.
How about you receiving blood? What they initially have to do if they false?
Well, there's fines and there's jail time. That's what they so. The bottom line is that, and again, it's really hard to enforce. I doubt, unless I did something grossly, that government would want to prosecute me to the full extent of it. You know what? Yeah, at the very most, you got a black mark on your against your name. In this industry, it's a very small industry, good industry, but very small. I told you I do a lot of consulting work. I work for attorneys. I do testify in court, and they ask me those questions. Have you ever been, have you ever been sued? Have you ever declared bankruptcy, personal and professional? Have you ever gotten involved with, misrepresentation? And, I have to answer truthfully.
All right, very good. Thank you, Bob.